activate.
This is Living Power with Dan Hurst.
To the third point, and that is focus on the Lord, not on the crisis. Focus on the Lord, not on the crisis. Oh, our God, will you not execute judgment on them? For we're powerless against this great horde that is coming against us. Verse 12. We don't know what to do, but our eyes are on you. Do you see that in verse 12? He said, look, we've got this problem. It's a crisis, but we're focusing on you, God. We're not going to focus on the problem. We're going to focus on you. He committed himself to seek the Lord in the midst of that crisis and to wait on the Lord. Now, that's an important part of it, to wait on the Lord. Our response to crisis is to find a solution immediately. You know, we go into this crisis mood, which is all about finding the solution, to try and work it out on our own. Through the years, I've been involved in a lot of crisis management in natural disasters and situations like that, hurricanes, earthquakes, that sort of thing, and responding to those things. And one of the dumbest things that you can do in one of those things is to just walk into the middle of the crisis and then just start doing something, anything, because that's not how you solve the issue. There has to be this assessment, a triage, if you will, of where the real needs are, what the real problems are. If you solve this problem, what other problems does it solve? What is the root problem? Where's the real crisis here? Because when we went through the big hurricane in New Orleans, I can't remember the name of it now. Whatever. Katrina. Almost said Karina. Katrina. And we went into Katrina, and there was this devastation there, and lives that were just completely displaced. And some people had stayed in their homes, and they were in real danger because they were just surrounded by floodwaters, couldn't get food to them, and the disease was rampant. And you know, you wanted to get in there immediately and start taking care of people, but that wasn't the answer. The answer was we had to assess the situation. What can we do if we solve this problem, what other problems will it solve? You know, what's the solution here? Well, when you're dealing with crisis in your life, the only way that you can do that is to focus on the Lord, because the Lord knows the steps that you have to take. He knows what problems have to be solved to solve other problems. And so the Lord has already assessed the situation, if you will. So you are to commit yourself by focusing on the Lord and not on the crisis. And it's dangerous to try to deal with this, by the way, on our own. When you are in a crisis situation, don't make the mistake of just dealing with it by yourself. You're not the Lone Ranger. You're not super Christian. You need people in your life, and sharing with that need with a couple of close brothers and sisters. I don't mean sharing with the whole church or the whole congregation, that sort of thing. But if you have a couple of close brothers and sisters in the Lord, that can strengthen you. It can help you to hold on and to wait on the Lord. You know, we live in an age of fast food, drive-through, banking, instant communication. Everything is instant gratification for us in this world. But as a child of God, you're going to be required to seek the Lord and wait on Him. You're not going to find instant gratification in God's solution to your crisis. God doesn't work that way. His timing is different from our timing. And while we think He needs to take care of this right away because the clock is about to hit midnight and we've got to solve this problem right now, God's not limited by your time. God's not limited by time or space. So when you look at Him and you go, I don't know if you've checked the watch, right here. Listen, God doesn't tell time. He tells time what to do. And so it's important for us to recognize that our God knows exactly what has to happen in His own timing and how the problem is solved. So you're going to have to seek Him intensely. You are going to have to wait on Him. And Jesus has told us that. He said not only to ask, but to seek and knock. In Matthew 7, verses 7 and 8, ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Well, seeking takes time. If you knew where the solution was, you wouldn't have to seek it. If you knew what God was doing immediately, you wouldn't have to seek what He's doing. You have to ask and you have to seek and then you will find. And then even when you find, you have to knock to make sure that you know, right, this is what God wants you to do. There's this process that God takes us through. But God says, look, ask, take your time to seek, you're going to find, knock, ask, knock. For everyone who asks receives. Isn't that a great promise? Everyone who asks receives. That includes you. That includes you. Everyone who asks receives, and the one who seeks finds. Take the time to seek. Allow that in your life. I'm going to have to seek this, but you're seeking the Lord. You're not seeking the solution, you're seeking the Lord. And as the Lord reveals himself and as he reveals the solution to the problem, he does it in his own time. Knock. It will be opened to you. There are going to be times in your life when you just simply don't know what to do. What do you tell a father whose son is in rebellion against God and hates everything that his father believes in and that his father loves? I went through a time in my life where I guess today we'd call him an agnostic. I just didn't really know if God really existed or not. And I remember sitting at the kitchen table one time with my mom and dad and saying to them, I actually had this conversation, and I said, look, I know that Christianity works for you guys. It's important to you, and obviously it's your life, but it just, to me, it's not real. And so it's not for me. And so I hope you understand that I'm just not going to be a Christian. I'm not going to follow that. I literally told my parents that because I was so incredibly intelligent. After all, I was a freshman in college. What do you tell a young woman whose husband has told her that he doesn't love her anymore and that the marriage is crumbling? There are times when you have no idea what to do or what to say. You simply will not know what the next step is. I remember having that conversation with my dad years later, and I said, Dad, what did you think when I said that to you? And he said, I didn't know what to think. I didn't know what to say. I didn't know what to do. He said, the only thing I knew to do was take it to the Lord. That was the only thing I knew to do. And I said, sounds to me like it was a pretty good choice. He said, it was the only choice. He said, what was I going to do? Convince you? He said, that was something that God had to do. So it's God alone who can strengthen you. It's God alone who can sustain you by his grace. It's God alone who has the power to help you provide the answers. He is your God. He is your rock. He is your refuge. That's why you have to turn to him and wait on him. Psalm 18 says it this way. The Lord is my rock, my fortress, my deliverer. Now I want you to notice something. Notice the process there. The Lord is my rock, my fortress, my deliverer. God starts sometimes by just being the rock in your life, the strength that you need in your life. He is the strong connection in your life. And he becomes your fortress. A fortress has to be built. And so God has to build a fortress in your life. He has to build protection around you. There has to be a process that God takes you through where he is providing his strength and his his protection for your life. And then he becomes your deliverer. He doesn't deliver you first. There's a process. The rock, the fortress, the deliverer. He takes you through that process. My God, my rock, in whom I take refuge, my shield, and the horn of my salvation, my stronghold. I call upon the Lord, who is worthy to be praised, and I am saved from my enemies. When the crises of life come and challenge you, commit yourself to seeking the Lord. Wait on him for the answers and the solutions that you need, is what he's saying. Wait on him. The psalm, by the way, goes on to say that things will get worse before they get better. That's what the psalm says. I don't like that part of the psalm. But that's what happens sometimes. Through it all, though, God was that psalmist's strength and deliverer. But sometimes things are going to get worse before they get better. Am I right, Tim? Sometimes things are going to get worse. Am I right, Daryl? Sometimes things are going to get worse before they get better. You're going to go through a process, and sometimes it feels like you're at the end of your rope and you can't take any more, but God says, no, you're not quite there yet. And it's not because God's being mean. It's just that God knows you're not through with that process yet. He's taking you through that process. He's building the fortress before he can become the deliverer.
On behalf of Dan Hurst and the Open Class,